Begin with something plain and unsentimental. Every other sign has an edge you can point to, where it starts, where it stops, what is inside it. This one does not have that edge, not as a poetic flourish, as a description of how it works. The books say sensitive and then stop, as though that were a personality. It is not a personality. It is a mechanism. It runs the same way every time, and once you can see it running, most of what looks mysterious about this placement stops being mysterious. Here is the mechanism. This placement walks into a room, and the room's condition arrives before anything is said. Who is angry? What was being discussed a minute before the door opened? Which two of them have fallen out? It is not deduced. It is simply already known. What is missing is the checkpoint. Most people receive a mood and hold it at the border for a moment. Whose is this? Do I want it? Here, there is no post and no one on duty. What arrives is already inside before the question can be asked. Which leads somewhere most people with this placement are never told. Much of what it feels all day did not start with it. The mood is real. It is being genuinely experienced, and its origin is somebody else entirely. So this placement can come home flattened by a day in which, factually, nothing happened to it. That sentence sounds like a complaint. It is a technical description, and the third chapter explains exactly where the energy went. Pisces is mutable water. Water takes the shape of what holds it. Mutable means it will do that again tomorrow, differently, without complaint. There is no fixed form here to defend, which is the whole strength and the whole difficulty. Treat it as equipment, and it makes sense. This is a receiver of unusual range with no filter fitted. Everything in the band comes in, the important, the trivial, and the entirely irrelevant, all at the same volume, all day. Range costs something. A receiver this open cannot easily tell a signal from noise because sorting requires a filter, and the filter is the missing part. So everything gets taken seriously, including things that deserved 4 seconds. But permeable is not the same as weak, and the two get confused constantly. A membrane that lets things through is doing its job. It is not failing at being a wall. It was never a wall. It is a different instrument with a different purpose. And the purpose is genuine. Almost every account of feeling understood by somebody who could not possibly have known involves a chart with this kind of water in it. That capacity is not decoration. It is the most useful thing here. Meanwhile, something else is running. On the surface, agreeable, easy, unbothered. Underneath, a full account of everything in the room, complete and constant. 2 versions at the same time, and only one of them ever gets shown. So here is where the day went. Every mood that came in was processed as though it were yours. Somebody's irritation on a train, a colleague's bad week, a stranger's argument 2 tables over. All of it handled properly, all of it costing something. And a harder version follows. After enough years, the question stops being answerable. Not whose feeling is this, but the one underneath it. Which of these preferences, opinions, and moods were ever mine to begin with? Which is why agreeing comes so easily and means so little. It is not warmth and it is not weakness. It is the fastest way out of a room that has become uncomfortable. Agreement here is an exit, and it is taken constantly. The other escape is vaguer and harder to name. Not a decision exactly, a slow drift out of the specific. Plans stay unmade, positions stay unheld, and nothing is ever refused outright, which means nothing is ever chosen either. And underneath both, a resentment nobody would guess at because it is never expressed. Years of taking on what was not offered and of nobody noticing the cost because the surface version kept insisting it was fine. The correction is unglamorous. Say one preference out loud, early, before the room has a mood. Not a boundary speech, a preference. Where to eat, what you actually thought of it. Small, specific, and yours. In closeness, this placement does not build a bridge to somebody, it merges. Preferences, rhythms, taste in music, opinions about a film. Within months, the join is genuinely hard to find, and it happened without anybody deciding to. So the failure mode is not conflict. It is disappearance. It does not leave the room. It leaves while remaining in it, agreeing pleasantly, present in every way except the one that matters. Partners often cannot name what changed. Repair, though, is where this placement is genuinely exceptional. It forgives early and it means it. No score is kept because keeping score would require the kind of edge it does not have. That is rare and it should be said plainly. Set it beside the moon in Virgo, its opposite. That one sorts everything into categories and calms down by getting the categories right. This one lets everything in undivided. Same problem, too much incoming, handled in opposite directions. What helps is being asked directly and specifically. General questions get general answers here because a general question can be met with whatever the room seems to want. A specific question is much harder to dissolve into. And it needs a partner who does not treat every stated preference as the start of an argument. This placement will only test that a few times. If saying what it wants proves expensive, it will simply go back to not saying it permanently. At work, the first thing to know is that this placement reads the temperature of a workplace with uncomfortable accuracy. Who is about to leave? Which project is quietly dead? It knows months early and it is usually right. Authority is where that becomes a problem. A manager in a bad mood is not read as a manager in a bad mood. It is absorbed and filed as a verdict on the work, and the work then gets adjusted to fix something that was never about it. So it underclaims. Work gets finished, credit gets left on the table, and someone with a firmer outline describes it in the meeting. This happens repeatedly, and it is rarely malice on anyone's part. Nobody was told whose it was. The mastery is real, and it is specific. Work where the material is other people, teaching, caring, making, anything requiring you to know what something will feel like from the inside before it exists. Very few can do that on purpose. What it needs is structure it did not have to invent. A deadline, a brief, someone expecting the thing on Thursday. Given an open field, this placement drifts. Given a frame, it produces work that people who invented their own frames cannot. The mature version learns to put its name on things while they are still warm. Not self-promotion, attribution. One sentence at the right moment, I made that. And a decade of quiet undercharging stops happening. The work here is not building a wall. Try to make this placement hard, and what you get is worse than what you started with. The work is a gate, the same range with a way to close it for an afternoon. In practice, it is one question, asked often enough to become a habit. Is this mine? Asked at the door, before the mood settles in and starts being furnished. It takes a second, and it gives back most of a life. There is a thing the old observers noticed about a crescent moon. The dark part is not actually dark. You can see it faintly, and the reason is that it is being lit by sunlight that struck the Earth first and came back up. Borrowed light, arriving from the thing it circles. Which is the placement, without the complaint attached. Some of what it carries came from elsewhere. That is not a fault in the design. It is the design. The only question worth asking is whether it gets to choose what it carries. One more thing, and it is properly strange. The point the old astronomers marked as the start of the year sat in Aries when they carved it. It does not anymore. It drifted over centuries, and it is now in Pisces. The sky itself did not keep its boundaries where it was told to put them. Nothing about that made the sky less reliable. Some things are built to hold a line, and some are built to move. And the second kind is not a failed version of the first.